Welcome back to True Haunt Lore. Tonight, we're going to County Offaly, Ireland, where a grey fortress rises from the mist like something the land tried to bury and failed. This is Leap Castle. Locals will tell you not to treat it like a ruin. Whatever is inside those walls still seems to notice when strangers arrive. Leap Castle is over 700 years old. It was never built to be gentle. It was built for power, fear, and blood. Its darkest name belongs to the O'Carrolls, a clan remembered for violence and betrayal. The old stories say enemies were invited in for feasts, given food and wine, then murdered once they were too drunk to defend themselves. That is the first truth about Leap Castle. The haunting did not begin with ghosts. It began with people. But the act that stained the castle forever happened in the chapel. In the 1500s, two O'Carroll brothers fought over the castle. One was a priest. The other was T.J. O'Carroll, a man hungry for power. One night, the priest stood at the altar saying Mass. Candles trembled against the stone. The family knelt in prayer. Then the chapel doors burst open. Tej crossed the room and drove his blade into his own brother's chest. The priest collapsed over the altar. The prayers stopped. From that night on, it was called the Bloody Chapel. People who enter that room today describe sudden cold, pressure in the chest, and a sorrow so heavy it feels like the building is breathing it into them. Some have seen the chapel window glowing at night, as if lit by candles. But when someone goes inside, there are no candles, no flame, only darkness. And sometimes, a shape stands near the window, watching. But the worst secret was below it. In the early 1900s, workers found a hidden opening in the wall. Behind it was a narrow shaft dropping into blackness. It was an oubliette, a pit made for one purpose: throw someone in and forget them. When lantern light reached the bottom, the workers saw spikes and bones. 3 cartloads of human remains were removed from that hole. Imagine being dropped into that darkness. If the fall did not kill you, the spikes might. And if they didn't, you were left there, bleeding, starving, listening to people above you walking over your grave before you were even dead. Among the bones, workers reportedly found a pocket watch from the 1800s. That detail is hard to shake. It suggests the pit may have been used long after the old violence should have ended. But the thing that makes Leap Castle truly terrifying is not the priest, and not even the victims in the pit. It is something older. They call it the elemental. The most famous account comes from Mildred Darby, who lived there around the turn of the 20th century. Mildred was fascinated by the supernatural. She held seances. She tried to reach the castle's spirits. But in a place like Leap Castle, when you knock on the dark, something may answer. One night, she felt a hand touch her shoulder. Cold, wet, not human. When she turned, she saw a thing about the size of a sheep, thin and wasted, with a face almost human but wrong, sunken, dark-eyed, hateful. Then came the smell: rotting flesh, dead leaves, sulfur. That smell has followed the elemental through witness accounts ever since. People say it does not feel like a normal ghost. Some believe centuries of murder and fear created it, as if human cruelty gathered in the dark until it had a body. After Mildred's encounters, servants fled. Guests refused to stay. The building felt alive and angry. Then, in 1922, during the Irish Civil War, Leap Castle was attacked and burned. Flames climbed through the windows. The roof collapsed. The floors fell in. Locals claimed they heard screams coming from inside. But the castle was supposed to be empty. For decades, it stood as a blackened ruin, open to rain, crows, and whatever refused to leave. Some who stepped onto the ground said they smelled sulfur among the stones. Later, the castle was restored and lived in again. That is what makes this story worse. Leap Castle is not only a legend. It is still there. It has been a home. The Ryan family, who restored it, reported footsteps with no source, cold pockets in sealed rooms, doors moving on their own, shadows where no person stood, and the constant feeling of being watched. There is the Red Lady, said to wander in scarlet with a dagger in her hand. There are also stories of 2 young girls, Emily and Charlotte, heard laughing in the hall. At any other haunted place, that might feel gentle.
At Leap Castle, even gentleness feels like bait. Investigators have reported sudden nausea, batteries draining in seconds, and strange growls caught on recorders. One team in the Bloody Chapel claimed a heavy wooden door slammed shut with impossible force. Moments later, a woman felt burning across her back. When they checked, 3 red marks had appeared on her skin.
Then the sulfur smell filled the room. They got out. Skeptics blame wind, old stone, fear, and imagination. Old castles groan, darkness tricks the mind. But wind does not explain 3 cartloads of bones. And imagination does not explain why so many people describe the same smell before the same feeling arrives. The feeling that something ancient and hungry is standing just outside the light. So picture the Bloody Chapel after midnight. Moonlight cuts through the window. Somewhere below your feet is the mouth of the oubliette. The room is empty, but it feels crowded. Then you smell it. Not mold, not smoke. Something rotten. And in the corner, where the dark is thickest, one shadow stops lying flat against the wall. It stands up. That is Leap Castle, a fortress where the past did not die. It waited. If you ever find yourself in County Offaly and see a gray tower rising through the mist, keep driving. Some places do not want visitors. They want witnesses. This has been true haunt lore. Stay in the light. So, after unpacking the pure, centuries-old terror we just explored, the brutal betrayal in the Bloody Chapel, the 3 cartloads of human remains pulled from the spiked oubliette, and the horrifying presence of the sulfur-smelling elemental, you're probably wondering, what exactly is the vibe at Leap Castle today? Well, my personal take on this infamous Irish fortress right now is all about its deeply deceptive, historical charm. If you drive into County Offaly today, expecting to find a dark, rotting, Hollywood-style ruin, you will be completely caught off guard. During the daylight hours, this restored gray fortress actually possesses a remarkably serene and peaceful aesthetic. Set against the lush green landscapes of rural Ireland, with its ancient stone architecture and quiet surrounding mist, it feels surprisingly cozy. Bathed in the soft Irish sun, the property genuinely looks like a bright, picturesque Thomas Kincaid-style painting of a historic, majestic European estate. Today, it has been beautifully restored and is actually lived in as a private home by the Ryan family. But honestly, from my perspective, that picture-perfect, welcoming exterior is exactly what makes the reality of Leap Castle so deeply unsettling. The contrast is just jarring, because while it looks like a serene, vintage home by day, the blood of the O'Carroll's victims soaked into its very foundations refuses to rest. You can be admiring the ancient stonework in the sun, but the moment you step inside the Bloody Chapel or stand anywhere near the hidden shaft of the oubliette, that suffocating dread rushes right back in. The victims of the past, and whatever ancient, dark entity the elemental truly is, haven't moved on. They are just waiting in the shadows of this family home, bringing with them that sudden cold and the unmistakable smell of rotting flesh and sulfur. Leap Castle proves that the most beautifully restored fortresses can still house the oldest, most hateful nightmares. Thanks for joining me on this case here on True Haunt Lore, and I'll catch you in the next mystery.